the lower part of Kersey has this lovely ford that, well, we've had quite a bit of rain recently, and it's quite wide, but it never gets so deep you can't drive through it. But then you look up towards the street. When you come to these lovely old villages, you actually see horses walking through the ford. Isn't that fantastic? Good morning. Happy Christmas. Just moving up from the ford at the bottom of the street, we've got the pub, the bell on the right, and of course in the far distance on the hill is the church. You can actually look back down to the ford at the bottom with all the lovely buildings. Then of course if you look up at the top of the street, there's this lovely thatch cottage, and all you do is turn round and look down the street back towards the bell, and you see these lovely beamed and rendered cottages, typical Suffolk pinks and yellows, and I love these beamed buildings. I love painting beamed buildings. Well, we have the lovely Bell Inn in the main high street, if you can call it a high street. I rather like this view as well. That's the view I'm going to put down in ink onto cartridge paper, just to see how it works really. Well, as you can see, I pulled in closer so you can really see all the real quick, swift line markings. You know, there's a line there that doesn't really do anything because it was an initial mark where the buildings sit onto the pathway. It's always a fine dividing line how deep they go, because if they're too short, they look very low buildings, and of course if they're too long, I mean if it were to come to there, it makes them long and thin. So initially I put in the main uprights so I could get the main uprights of the buildings running out of picture, leaving a gap in the centre, and then I hardened up the roof lines a little. I didn't put any windows, chimneys or anything else until I'd completed the actual the structure of the building, the outside edges. So once I've got those right, because the thing is, if I started putting windows, you know, and work my way along, if that weren't quite right size, I can't adjust it because I've got all the detail. So do all the basic shell of the buildings first. Then decide where they're going to sit on the ground. So make the lines longer or shorter. Then put in the path. Then, if you're happy or reasonably happy, put in the chimneys, windows, obviously the cars, a little bit of idea of the distant trees, and of course we've got, it is Christmas, so we've got the lovely tree stand there with lights on. So basically that's it. That's the way you draw them. Don't worry about if there's any lines that you've not. Don't make them too neat, because, you know, I'm trying to capture an old street, not a specific architectural drawing. Well, this is basically what I take. It's a laptop holder or case, but I've adapted it to a sketching container really. We've got a reasonable size, it's an A4 watercolour or drawing pad that is made by Pink Pig. I always use the pink sketchbooks. They're beautifully bound. And of course, when you do these sketches, you need to keep them for sometimes long periods, because it's not always that you do a full-blown painting from them, even the next week or the next 6 months. So I took that. In here I've got all sorts of different pencils. I've got water soluble pencils there, and I've got a tin of pencils there for sketching. I've also got 3 different grades of permanent ink pens, fine point, medium, and a very thick point, so they always come in handy. I've got my little wet brush that holds water. I believe I've shown you how I use that in the past. And of course some little clips that I keep for holding the paper down if it's a bit windy, and I've got a small penknife there and a putty rubber just in case, penknife for sharpening, and that's pretty much it really. And let me show you the actual drawing I did with my ink pen. Well, there you have the drawing that I did on site. It's an ink drawing with my small permanent ink. I used a medium and a fine point. The fine point was for the basic drawing of everything, and the medium was for putting any real, like the dark beams in, and I think I've got a feel of the day really.